Welcome to Auto Arcadia. So this is episode 2. Shitbox versus sports car. Is bought better than built, or is built better than bought? It's an interesting question. And I am your host, Colin Wood.
And I'm your other host, Thomas Hope.
And we're going to have a look at seeing if we can shed some light on this bullshit. So, obviously we're not talking about pitting a Fiesta against a Veyron, but a breathed on 240i versus a standard C63 Merc, or a tuned Supra TT versus a Porsche 911 Turbo. That's a very different conversation, I think, Tom.
Yeah, I'm really interested to hear what your thoughts are on this, because you've got a lot more of first-hand experience with the build side of this, whereas I think I more gravitate naturally through inability to get stuff done to the bot side of this kind of discussion. It's not that I'm against building, I'll never get that done.
Fair enough. It is a big commitment in time and resources and sanity to build a car from a bare shell up, to be fair.
Yes, most certainly. Yeah. How many have you built from a bare shell up?
I've lost fucking count, man. My first one was at like 13. That was the Mini.
Yes.
I owned a Mini before I was old enough to drive, and that experience alone put me off of fucking owning British cars for life. So yeah.
Got that with your system really, really early.
Oh yeah, like just really early. No, never again will a British car cross the threshold of my fucking garage. But yeah, man, no, I've built a few MR2s and Supras are my go-to. I've built a few MR2s in my time. I've rebuilt a few Imprezas, and I've built one Supra, the cheapest Supra ever bought, which I will explain that story in a future episode. But yeah, I mean, I also buy a lot though. So, and usually I've bought them and then blown it up and then built it, which is where the kind of building comes from. I've never really bought a project just to build, which is something I'd like to do in the future though.
Fair. So your builds have been more out of necessity than design.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's always because I've broke it.
Fair. No, I can highly relate to that. I tend to be a bit of a car breaker.
Really, the question is, so the philosophy of built over bought, is it true? Is it a badge of honour? Or is it a mark of fucking lunacy?
Ooh, quite the question. I mean, there's definitely... there's a little bit of everything in all of it, but I think what we're here to do is decide which is the most. I would be reluctant to say it's lunacy, because I do admire people that build their own creations. Some people just need to be creative and make a mark on something, and if they make a really cool car out of it, then that's okay with me. But I think it would drive me insane.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Because, I mean, it drove me insane. The Supra was crazy. The Supra was the biggest build I ever did. And it never got finished in the end because I bought a house and sold it all because there was a 14 grand gearbox that sold, which is discussed in episode 1. Yeah, I just couldn't get on with it after that. Like, the cost involved was too much, but it was right at the cusp of when the JDM cars exploded. But yeah, I mean, I bit off a lot. Like, that was a full, like, subframes off the chassis on axle stands, underneath it, grinding everything back to bare metal, built hamber, rust proofing after welding new panels on, and then undercoating it black underneath, so the underside was totally black. All the subframes were like acid dipped and then repainted. Suspension arms were like a Kia Formula. That's what we went to. It was like there was no rubber bushings, it was all spherical bearings. The engine had a turbo you could literally crawl inside of. A very comfortable house in it. And then I also got a positive displacement supercharger that I was putting on it as well. And it grew arms and legs, and like it was crazy. Like I bought a gazebo to erect inside my storage unit so that I could make my own spray booth for painting it. Like that's the level it went to. Like I had filters, I had powered air circulation into a gazebo with filtration on it, and then I had an air-fed mask and a compressor and everything. Like I have a lot of equipment which allows me to do all this shit, but there was also a bit of fucking madness in there as well.
Do you think that's kind of a natural part of it as well, is the scope creep? you know, like the project, just you say it grew arms and legs, like you wanted to twin charge it. Like, do you feel that that's just something that naturally happens?
Yeah, man. A project car's never finished. I don't know. It's very hard to, cause like this sums up perfectly the scope creep. So I started rebuilding the interior on the Supra after I got all the shell sprayed and everything, and it looked amazing. And then I looked at the pedals, and I had the dash was all aluminium panels, like, and formed to the same sort of standard as the OEM plastics, but it was all metal and like custom made clocks that went up. They were basically copies of TRD clocks, which anyone that's into Supras will know what I'm talking about. But I looked at the pedals and I was like, they look fucking shit. So I went and bought a 1,200 quid pedal box to replace the pedals.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, just because I looked at them and they weren't up to scratch with the rest of the interior, I was like, that
Yeah,
needs
they
to.
looked out
Oh,
of place, do you think?
yeah, it looked out of place. It looked gash. It didn't look in keeping with the car. And I was like, that has to fucking change because that's not right. And that's the mindset you have to avoid because that leads to financial ruin.
Yes. Don't get it right, get it running.
Yeah, that's it. Like, do all that shit once you've got it running. For me, like that's you could take a pedal box out and get it back up and running and rebuild that system in the car in a weekend. There's no reason when you're rebuilding an engine, rebuilding a gearbox, making prop shafts, can swapping diff internals and pumpkins, and then doing complete suspension transplants, and then doing all the body work and welding new panels on, and then sorting an interior, and then re-dyeing carpets because they're grey and you want them black, and then
Yeah.
re-dyeing headlining because you saw it in another car and it looked fucking cool. It's like, it just is mental. Like, get it running and bite off little bits at a time.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great like way of approaching it. Small task.
Oh yeah, little bites over big bites.
Well, we both kind of have answered it. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting that we do take an opposite approach on this one.
So no, I'm kind of interested to hear what you would do if you were going to build though. Like,
Okay, so whilst I am a kind of a bought overbuilt kind of guy, I have kind of always wanted to have like a little bit of space where I could just kind of potter at a car, but I would be looking for something really fucking dead simple, dead basic, dead agricultural, something that like wouldn't involve me getting a laptop out, wouldn't involve me learning how to do fucking wiring and all of that stuff. Like I don't really want to do that. I quite like just fucking about with mechanical stuff.
yeah,
So honestly, I think I would look for something like quite a basic, maybe a basic Japanese sports car. You know, even though we just talked about JDM. Honestly, stuff like old British sports cars appeal to me because I quite like how basic as fuck they are.
yeah. I mean, when you want unsophisticated and not technologically advanced, anything British is a safe go-to.
Yeah, totally. Because I mean, fundamentally, I'm really interested in just like, I know how an engine works, but I've never had the opportunity to take one apart myself. So I'd love to have a go at that, and I would like that with no pressure of, oh, this is the only car I have, I need to start this now. Like a kind of, oh, I've got a garage and I've got space, and I just bought a car and I just started to kind of take it apart, see what's going on in it, basically.
It's quite interesting hearing you say that because as you say that, my mind is going, Thomas is at the top of a very slippery slope right now. And he's going to end up doing a full fucking rebuild on something in the future. I can see it coming.
I could totally see myself being the kind of person that would have to go back to like, I'd keep uncovering a layer of something I'm not happy with, and I'd be like, right, fuck it, we're going back to basics. I'll start again, and I'll redo the car. But the idea of doing that also completely and utterly overwhelms me. Like,
Yeah.
the extent to which I've modified a car in the past has been chucking a different set of wheels on it. Like, kind of that's about it.
It is a slope that you get onto, I have to say. But yeah, I mean, and the thing is as well, like, I think a big driver for building is cost, though.
Yeah.
Because I know I said before, like 1,200 quid for a pedal box, but that is the extreme end of the spectrum. In the Supra community, for example, there was a big thing about going NAT, which is when you have an NA car and you turbo it. And there
Yep.
was a lot of focus on budget NAT builds when I had Supras because they were right at the bottom of their kind of value curve. And there was people that
Yeah.
were genuinely going turbo, like 350 to 400 brake horsepower for less than $1,000.
Which is insane bang for your buck.
Oh yeah, like I mean, I totally get where the argument comes from, bought over built. So we're talking 2010s, going out and buying like a Mark II Audi TT with 250 brake horse. And I mean, there's somebody in at the time, 22-year-old Supra that spent £1,000 on it, absolutely annihilating them. And that's very much that's the ethos of the built rather than bought, or built not bought is like the sticker everyone has.
Yes.
Like, I love it. I absolutely adore the idea of that. But then I also see. Sorry, go on.
Well, I was just gonna say, honestly, I can totally get the pleasure and the satisfaction and the pride that you get in building something yourself, especially if you've made it better than it was, or you've really suited it to your own liking. Like that would feel good. Like, if I built a car exactly how I wanted it, and I went out for a drive in it, I'd feel great. I'd be like, this is brilliant. I did this.
Yeah, and like honestly, the satisfaction is insane. Like, I still remember, like, at 13-year-old, rebuilding that fucking shitty BMC A series engine out of like 4 different engines. Like, there was 4 fucked engines, and we built one good one out of it. And like,
Yeah.
I still remember the feeling. And
Do you remember the first start?
yeah, man, which is crazy.
Core memory,
Oh yeah, like you're on cloud 9 when you rebuild an engine. The very first time you do it, when you're on like engine 402, it's like, yay, it worked. I have mental issues, but like the first time you do it, and it doesn't matter what it is, like it feels amazing. Once you get that, you're always chasing that rush. It is a rush. The psychology behind it is probably quite complicated.
Yeah, totally. I suppose you have more of a connection to it if you build it yourself as well.
Oh yeah, like
Sometimes bought stuff is a bit disposable.
it is. It feels a bit like it's taking something very exciting and making it almost like a white good. But at the same time, I totally get why you just buy and not bother doing anything to it. Keep it for 3 years, sell it, not worry about MOT in it, not worrying about anything because it's on a service package, and then getting the newer, faster one in 3 years' time.
Yes, yeah.
If you were to build something, what would you build? Like, what would the base be? What would the function be?
That's a really good question, because I feel conflicted. And I feel conflicted when driving a lot. Because the roads around here are bumpy as shit. They're, there's random potholes. They're not really in the best condition. So you kind of want a car that's like, got a bit of ride height, is like, maybe a little bit kind of softer, is not, won't crash through bumps, and will more kind of like, absorb them and be less strain on everything. Also, when you drive on a nice bit of road, a car like that can not feel the most satisfying. And I often really want a car that feels like quite tight and responsive and hard. So I think I'd probably end up making something a little bit kind of a bit go-karty for the road, if you know what I mean. Like stripped out, roll cage, as much weight towards the back as possible. I mean, is there any fun rear wheel drive for hatch platforms that's not an M1 series?
I'm struggling to have any pop to it. Toyota Starlet, the old ones, like a 70s one. I can't even remember.
Yeah, you'd have to go back a fair bit to get one, which is a bit of a shame. Oh, well, actually, do you know what I really do like as well? I'm finding myself feeling quite like low key and kind of like small scale when it comes to the built versus bought. But like, I actually quite like a Polo GTI or a Lupo GTI. Fuck, I bet a built Lupo GTI would be good fun. Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I'm wrong.
No. You're welcome to your view. I cannot agree. It's different strokes for different folks, and I fucking hate Volkswagen Audi Group. Is the be all and end all of this? My response to that, but I totally get what you're fair. Yeah.
Do you know what I would always have loved though? Is a Silvia. I'd love a Silvia as a platform to start with.
I'll give you that. Front engine, rear wheel drive, light at the back end, 350 brake, feels genuinely fucking rocket ship fast in them.
Mm-hmm. And they're not super modern, that I'm kind of put off by all of like the weight that they come along with.
Yeah, they're still pretty analogy as well, and everyone bags on a lot of Japanese imports for being heavy, but they're really not compared to now.
Yeah, oh my god, cars are so heavy now.
Oh, there's so much bloat, it's ridiculous.
I mean, and it's wild what cars are heavy as well. Like that Volvo S40 that I had, my TT weighed about the same as that. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
It's
there was
just
a lot
tiny.
more. There was a lot more car in the Volvo for the weight than what there was in the TT.
There's a lot more space in it. Yeah.
Do you know what I find really interesting though
What's that?
about your answer there is I think I would go the same way.
Well, like a
But
hatch.
no, not a hatch. I would go small, short wheelbase, lightweight. And I think if I was to build something, I don't even think the purpose would be different for me either. The function would be the same. I'd want something that's fun on the road, but could also go on the track. And do you know, honestly, the thing that I would hit would be a Mark III MR2.
What, an MRS?
Yes.
Do you know what, right? I want to know why, because I think they are one of the ugliest cars.
Right. So if you get one after an '05 plate, it has a limited slip diff in it.
Oh, really?
Yes. The vast majority of them are manual. They're
Yeah.
also mid-engined. And that Celica we were looking at on the auction site before,
Yes.
that engine drops right into them, which
I
gives...
mean, yeah, fair enough. That would you turbo it?
No, I would remove everything I could weight-wise. Like I'd put a fiberglass hardtop on it and do away with the folding roof. And I would get it down to, I reckon you could probably get that down to about 750, 800 kilos. At that point,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
190 brake in that would be an absolute weapon. It would be a laugh.
Yeah. They would definitely be fun. And if it wasn't a turbo, yeah. I mean, it did come with the variable valve engine, the VVTi.
Yeah. They're
But
about 150 brake, which, to be honest, in something that light isn't actually all that bad.
yeah, do you think there's much more you could squeeze out of that without switching the engine?
Do you know what, right? Yes. I reckon you could. Well, you'd have to do something with the conrods and the pistons because they're made of chocolate. But you could make it faster, but genuinely, I wouldn't. And this is a thing, like if I was to build another car, which I am going to in the future, I'm going to be, I would be chassis orientated. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
bothered about big power. You know, it harks back to what we were talking about, where a small car that's not actually all that fast is really good fun to drive like a tool.
Yes.
Because
Yeah, it's really good fun ragging on a car that kind of isn't really very quick, doesn't handle it very well.
yeah, if you made that car really handle well and made it so you could absolutely kill giants on a twisty road or on a track,
Yeah.
that for me would be more satisfying. And the fact that you can wring its neck in the first 4 gears and you're only then at risk when you get into the fourth gear.
You've got to be able to enjoy it day to day on the road, and that means it's got to be road appropriate. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great fun having an absolute weapon that, like, with overtaking capacity for days, and it can just blast from 30 to 60 without too much trouble. That's great and stuff like that. But like, I don't go out and drive to overtake lots of cars going slower than me. That's not like what I get out of driving. I get out of driving is finding a nice stretch of empty road and like going for a nice drive, kind of getting on it on the road.
Yeah, and I suppose, like, don't get me wrong, there's something incredibly badass and cool about building something with north of 750 horsepower.
Yes.
Right? And they're a riot to drive, an absolute hoot. Like, they're class. It's great fun. I don't care what anyone says, but they're also quite tiring to drive. And that's a fact. Like, to drive something that wants to kill you, especially if it's rear-wheel drive, they just want to kill you. Like,
Yeah.
to drive that at the limit is fucking tiring. And genuinely, you have more fun in something with less power. That's a controversial point, but it's fucking true.
Nah, it's totally fair, honestly. Like, and you're right. It takes a lot of effort. If you go for a proper drive, like sometimes you come back quite sweaty, and
Oh yeah, like it takes it out of you. It is tiring to drive quickly. There's a reason that race car drivers are very fit.
Yes, I completely agree. I completely agree. What we're basically saying right now is we're athletes.
Pro
I could not
athletes.
agree more.
Pro athletes, mate.
Pro athletes. Totally.
Oh fuck yeah, pro fucking idiots more like. But it's what it is, and I know there's lots of different people are going to have lots of different opinions on what they would want to build, but the question was, what would you build?
I really like resto mods. I think that is honestly like a great way to go. I'm not a purist by any means. Like I don't think that cars need to be kept like factory condition. Like I think if they're if they came with drums and you've got a way to convert them to discs, then go for it. It makes them way fucking better. Like
Oh yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that.
like I love the builds that you see as well, where people are like the only reason they've done it is to fuck off purists. But it's like you get somebody that's got like, here's an Escort Cosworth, and I've put a Subaru Impreza engine in it, and everyone loses their shit. Why is there not a fucking 40-year-old Cosworth YB in there? And it's like, because it's shit, and this is better, which it's not. But yeah,
Totally. Fuck it, it's your car. You can do what you want with it.
yeah, precisely, man. And like, if you couldn't fucking annoy idiots on the internet, what would life be?
So true.
So that's actually the build side. Now, if you were to buy a car, what would it be?
We can't just give an open-ended question like that. There needs to be some kind of parameters. There needs to be some kind of constraint.
Oh, limited
Like,
to one car.
One car, right? Okay, fair, one car, but like, what's the budget and what's the point? Am I buying a car to compete with like a built car?
Yeah.
Do I have
So,
to daily this car?
right, hold on. Let's do two questions here, right? What would you buy, limited to one car, budget unlimited, and it had to compete with what your idea of your build car would be?
Interesting. That's such a hard question to answer. Essentially saying what car would you have if you could have any car in the world?
Yeah. The only parameter is you can only buy one, and
Fair.
and it's competing against what your idea of your car you would build it. That's the only two parameters. Like, cost doesn't matter. It could be from a Koenigsegg Agera to a fucking pogo stick. No, what's that? A G-Wiz.
Okay, so I'd want something that was like, fun, engaging. So I've always liked the Alpine A110s, the new ones. I think they look pretty cool. They're like, I like their vibe. So yeah, maybe something like that would be what I would go for. That's like 50k. That's a great car. It doesn't seem outrageous. You could drive that. It's not too old. It's not too inconvenient.
Literally as soon as you said an Alpine A110, the little meme of a man of culture I see just popped up in my head. I was like, that is such an amazing fucking answer.
They do seem kind of great, to be honest. Like it's kind of been filed in the back of my head as, maybe if I'm older and they still exist, I might actually be able to pick one of them up, kind of used, and have a nice time with it.
Yeah, that's fucking on point.
Also right up there, like, you could always get a 911, you could always get, the Cayman as well. The Cayman, is it the GTS? I don't think I'd want the full,
like the GT4 one.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I want that on the road. I bet that's great, but,
Yeah, it's getting on for being too much.
Yes, a bit too harsh, a bit too hard for the road.
Yeah, I'll give you that. So,
what about you? What would you have?
Oh, to compete with my idea of a built car, specifically the built car that I gave the example of, has to be fun, has to be tactile, has to be engaging, and budget unlimited. Do you know the Lancia Stratos that you can buy?
The new one?
The reproduction?
I do, yeah.
That.
Yeah, I mean, I like those.
Like, to compete against, like, what my idea of a build would be, yeah, I think that's where I'd have to go.
Fair, honestly, I think that's a really good answer.
It's really interesting how both of our fucking purchase cars to compete with the build car, though, are total left field choices.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff about super and hypercars that don't really appeal to me overly. They're cool, but I don't know if I'd ever want to just cut about in one constantly.
Yeah, it would probably get very grating after a while.
Yeah, I would say so.
Well, right. So the second part of this question. So limited to one car.
Right.
For the rest of your days. It's like, this is the car you buy. Budget 40k.
Okay.
And that's you. It's your daily, you have to drive it. It's the only car you're going to have for the rest of your days. And it has to do everything. It has to be able to take the kids to school. It has to take go to the shops, bring shopping back. has to be able to drag its fucking fat ass down a shitty road and everything else.
Oh man, see, as soon as you say it has to drag itself down a shitty road, like how shitty are we talking about here? Are we talking like fucking rutted farm track?
A medium farm track. Like, do you know, right, actually, when I say a shitty road, like going to the beach, the road between the main road and getting to the parking spot at the beach, that sort of level of shitty road.
Okay, I get you. So still drivable.
Yeah, oh no, definitely. Like, you wouldn't need a fucking Land Cruiser to do it.
Right,
Like,
okay, cool.
and only car that pops into my head for this, I think you already know what I'll say, so I'll let you go first.
No, I need more time. I need to. I
Fair
definitely
enough.
need more time.
So mine would be a 997 Porsche 911 Turbo manual.
See, I immediately thought a 911 as soon as this question was posed, but then you said, "Oh, it has to be able to get places," and I was like, "Oh, I'm not sure I could get 911 everywhere that you might need to go."
I reckon with a lack of mechanical sympathy and just not caring and knowing that my insurance is fully comprehensive, I could get it down a shit road.
I mean, fair enough. So my thought also was 911, but having reflected further, there's some other stuff I quite like.
Ooh.
It's hard when you say it's the only car I could ever have and I need it to do stuff. Like, part of me does say, oh, I'd quite like an RS4 at some point. The V8 one. The conversation we had before this podcast started, aside about the 4.2 and its timing chain, I would definitely still love to have one. I think they look fantastic, and that the blue that they did like blues, reds, beautifully strong, bold colors. I'd like love one in like if yellow. If you could get Audi yellow in that, I'd love that. An estate. Don't really like the estates over the convertible or the saloon of that, like the RS4. But if it had to be my forever car, boom, estate, fast estate, great engine sound, pretty rapid, but plenty of space for the inevitable Christmas tree that you end up getting.
Yeah, man, I'll give you that. Like, fast estates are something cool as well. Like, there's something unquantifiably amazing about a fast estate.
Yeah, I do quite like an estate, and a fast estate is not a bad thing by any means. Estates were everywhere when I was younger, but they're just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, it's a bit like saloons and coupes. Like, everyone's replacing them with hatchbacks.
Oh my god, yeah. Remember when the Mark 1 Mondeo was fucking everywhere? Like, it was the car.
Yes, I do. I've got a soft spot for Mark 1 Mondeo.
I can understand why. And like, they've all disappeared. They were definitely a victim of the scrappage scheme.
Oh yeah, definitely. But the thing is, like, they got replaced with Focuses.
I mean, to be fair, they still made the Mondeo. It's just it wasn't really as popular as the Focus.
Yeah, that's fair. But like,
people love hatchbacks.
I don't know why. I fucking detest them. So I do.
They're not my favorite body shape for sure. I'd rather have a less practical coupe than a hatchback. I mean, I fucking did when I bought that TT.
Absolutely, man.
I just bought a Golf that I could fit less stuff in.
Yeah, that's it. When you rationalize it like that, it's like, why the fuck would you do it?
Honestly, I had no space in that car. Fucking ridiculous. I bought this massive mirror on Gumtree, and I drove the TT over to look at it, and I was like, this is great. I'll just try and get in the car now. Fucking no way. Didn't even half go in the car.
Really?
I had to come back with a van.
Yeah. I don't miss that about owning coupes.
Yeah, it's just never any space for anything.
No, man. Like, yeah, I really don't understand the hatchback thing. Like, it's a compromise, and it's not a good compromise either.
I mean, I kind of understand it from the point of view of it makes sense space-wise. You get more space. You can make it 5-door. There's the hatch for better access. You can't deny there is more space in the back of a hatchback than there is in the saloon, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But the argument kind of falls apart when, like, crossover hatchbacks are, like, not really that spacious because they're quite cramped and stuff. And they're still big. So it's like, Do people even give a fuck about space? Do they just like the shape?
Yeah. Do you know what, right? I think the reason I don't like them is because you're giving up fun for practicality. And you're giving up looks for practicality. Like, don't be an adult about buying a car. Be a child. I I don't want something that's safe and practical. I want to go everywhere in a pantomime of pops and bangs. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to that question of like, some people are just not that into cars. A lot of them, they just don't really care.
Yeah, we need to show them the error of their ways.
There's definitely a lot of brand snobbery around cars as well, which is really interesting because like a lot of people don't give a toss about cars, but yet some people still won't own certain cars.
Yeah,
It's so
that
strange.
that's mental. So it is, and it's like a lot of people buy common cars because I think it makes them feel successful. Like
Yeah.
everyone's driving about in like base model Mercs, and it's like, oh, Mercedes, so I must be doing well in life. But statistically, you're just proving that you're not because everyone has a fucking base level entry Mercedes. It's like,
is that a base level A160? I see.
precisely. Like, you can't be doing that well when half the population's doing the fucking same as you.
Yes. Yeah, the base spec German car is pretty ubiquitous UK at the moment.
It is. I mean, buying M3, motherfucker's doing something right. But yeah, it's a bit mental.
Do you like builds of cars that are otherwise a bit shit, that someone's like built up to be something really, really stupid and over the top?
I really do. Like do you know, seeing like a jet engine powering a crisp packet?
Yeah.
That's like the analogy for it. Just something that everyone looks like, and they're like, "That's a heap of shit," and then it blows their doors off. That's cool.
Yeah, fast buckets are cool. Doesn't really matter what it is. If it's a bucket, it's quite cool.
No, as an example of that, the Mark IV Golf with
Yes.
the RS6 V10 twin turbo engine in it. Have you seen?
Oh yes.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's fucking fast.
It's quite quick, like, yeah.
See, I don't know if I would ever take on the challenge of building something like that though.
Yes, that's a very, very bespoke build.
Yeah, like that's a very, very big engine to fit in a very, very small space.
Yeah. Everything about that is custom. Like, have you heard of Project Binky?
No.
So it's these guys are putting I think it's a Celica, 4-wheel drive running gear and engine into a mini shell.
Oh, this sounds incredible.
It's on YouTube. It's a really long series, but they've done a lot of like custom fabrication themselves. Like it's a really interesting build. But that's largely because of how like tightly packaged everything is. I think it's a turbocharged engine as well that's going into it.
Right.
But yeah, like that's basically where they're fabricating not just their own parts, but they're like building their own like kind of like tools to fabricate their own other parts, if you know what I mean. It's like it's properly a big engineering project.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, I honestly would actually recommend giving some of the episodes a look. It's a long series though.
But like a good couple of evenings watching several hours of it a night, I take it.
It would be something like that. It's like the episodes are about 40 minutes to an hour long, and there's like 50 of them or something.
Fucking hell, right? I'll give it a look, man. I do like a good fucking build to watch online.
Yeah, I wonder if someone's made like a little cut of them putting it all together so you can see it over time.
Hey, a speed lapse. No, it's not a fucking speed lapse. Use your brain, you fucking idiot. A time lapse video.
Aye, totally, a time lapse. Exactly.
Yeah, man. Do you know, this actually segues quite nicely into some examples, which Project Binky's a fucking fantastic example that I was not aware of and I need to have a look at. But like some builds, so like not like some automotive version of the Super 8's Fiesta ST build where they do a pop and bang remap, a back box delete, and then drive around going, yo man, Subaru Turbo, Daka Daka Daka. That's not what we're talking about here. Like,
you forgot about the splitter.
I did. I forgot about the trucker cap and the vape as well.
Do people still put subwoofers in their cars?
I don't know actually. Do you know? I think this is a very enthusiast thing now. Performance audio, but keeping it lightweight as well.
Yeah, so not just putting like multiple hi-fi units in the back of the car.
Yeah, actually, I was quite surprised to see quite a big following for that sort of crap still when we were at Gravity.
Yeah, yeah, we did see a fair bit of that.
There was a big max power section there.
With it's the custom mount for all of the amps and subs that I always used to get me, because some of them just looked fucking terrible.
Oh yeah, like this big fiberglass fucking monstrosity in the boot with like bits and pieces going everywhere just to mount a speaker. It's crazy. Yeah. The one thing I will say is a nice head unit.
Yeah.
Like a nice touchscreen. Well, not now. This is the criteria. A nice touchscreen head unit that has Apple Android CarPlay on, Android Auto on it. That's the boy right there. Boom, job done. Don't need to do anything else to the entertainment system. A lot Bluetooth, hands-free, and Spotify, and that's it.
You know, I've never used Android Auto, but like I'm just happy with like a Bluetooth thing. Like literally anything that can Bluetooth to the speakers, and it doesn't really matter as long as that's fine.
Yeah, actually, I'll go along with that. Like Android Auto is surplus.
Yeah, like you know the TT that I had came with a Parrot hands-free kit because it was of that ilk where like if you were doing business in your TT, you needed to be able to talk hands-free on your Parrot system. So it was like hard. It was wired in relatively well. It wasn't the worst job in the world, and it looked like it had been fitted for quite a while, and it worked with Bluetooth. Shockingly enough, it actually worked quite well with Bluetooth. And I used to be able to play music through that. And honestly, that was totally enough. That's all I needed, the bare minimum.
That's fair, man. I like it. Do you know, there's a thing I don't like, which is stuff that's stuck on, and that's why I would go in the direction of a head unit. But
what do you mean by stuff that's stuck on?
Like just a screen that's like stuck on the dash.
Oh yeah, no, I totally get. Yeah, touchscreens in cars defeat me completely and utterly. Yeah. I lean fully into Boomer on that. I'm like, give me dials, switches, dials. I need them.
Yeah. Well, do you know, it's actually interesting though, because all the really expensive stuff like the hypercars, they're all going back the way now. So they're all going back to having buttons.
Oh, good, nice. So hopefully they will lead the way.
Yeah, like in 5 or 6 years, all the new cars are going to have buttons again. It'll filter back down. Which is going to be amazing.
I mean, touchscreens, they're just really slow and unresponsive, and they're quite distracting and really hard to navigate when you're driving.
Yeah, like you can't use a touchscreen without looking at it. But a button, muscle memory can work a button.
Yeah, totally. The button doesn't move.
That's it, precisely. And also, the context of the button doesn't change. Like, with a touchscreen doing numerous different things, you press the same bit of the screen on 2 different screens, it does a different fucking function.
Yeah.
Which is why you can't work them without looking at them. It's stupid. It really is.
I totally agree, man. Like, bring back buttons, please. Buttons and switches. Although I'm not a huge fan of, those really, really cheap. They're on literally almost every car of the kind of like 2000s generation. Those knobs that change between hot and cold on the blowers.
Yes.
Like there's no car that really got them right.
No.
I just kind of look a bit shit. None.
I think that the closest I ever came to a car that got it right was the RX-8, and it was a button, and it was a dial, and you turn it up, and it had a little LCD display that selected the temperature, and you just spun it up and down.
Oh yeah, that
worked, but even that wasn't perfect.
Yeah. How do you feel about the? I don't know what the display type is, but it's like the old. Maybe it is LCD, like LCD. It's like the old Casio kind of calculator level of kind of graphic visual. I'm not really sure the best way to describe this, but like on your heads-up display, you would have like the old kind of digital looking font, and it would be like red or not red. You would get multiple colors or anything like that. Like, how do you feel about that stuff?
It's a gimmick. I'm not interested. I just want it to work.
My Volvo had one of those terrible, really basic calculator level LCD screens for its infotainment system. It was totally fucking pointless. It did nothing. No information it could convey that you couldn't convey some other way.
Were you not saying that you can change the colour on and all this sort of stuff, or were you meaning it has that rainbow effect where it's got like an iridescent sheen on the screen?
No, where it's just like one colour. Like a calculator, how it's that the calculator kind of font, and it's just like.
Yes, it's really common on odometers.
Yeah, totally. But also like on the head units for like like the TT that I had the little display that the one that always fucking goes on those instrument clusters into like lines.
Yeah.
Like that kind of I need to figure out what it's called, and I'll just use the name. Right, that's it. It's LCD pixels. That's what the yeah.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're on about now that
You know the vibe.
Yeah.
They still exist on some cars, actually, to be fair, but that was kind of that was everywhere. Like, you know, your infotainment system had that kind of vibe
Yeah.
when
No,
LCD screens became the thing.
I'm getting what you're saying now. Like, I'm following you 100% here. Yeah. I can take them or leave them. You know, I really like analog. Like, on a dash. Like, having analog wheels from from 0 to 9. That's the boy. That's better than having a display.
Oh, definitely. I do not want a digital speedometer or digital tachometer. Like, I want those to be dials that bounce up and down because
Yeah,
they're the best.
like that's the thing. I would say like Lexus dials, where they're digital but they're still a dial, still work. Like the LFA is the thing I'm thinking of here. Like the LFA dials are fucking cool.
Yeah, there's got to be some sort of like bouncing needle kind of or progression. I'm not a huge fan of. Was it the Renault Modus had a digital speedo and it was like horizontal across the. Oh no,
Yes,
it
it's
wasn't.
horrible.
It was a digital speedo and it was a digital tachometer that went around the top of the speedo.
Yep,
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm in the camp. It's shit. It should never be done, and it should never have been done in the first place. One thing, the RX-8 had this. It had a digital speedo, which was in the center of the tachometer, which was in the center of the dash. But then to the
Aye.
side, it had an analog one.
Oh,
And
okay.
I
Yeah,
really
I get
like
you.
that. A lot of Porsches have this as well. GT86 has this as well, actually. Strangely, a lot of good drivers' cars have that setup.
I think the most important one to be dial is the tack.
Yes.
That's the most important one. That's the one that you want to be able to get a good vibe from just by glancing at really, really quickly. It
Yep.
takes me a little bit longer to process numbers than just seeing like something in a position.
Yeah, that's it. And the other thing as well, like a lot of cars are designed that all your needles are in the same place when you're doing like 60 or 70 mile an hour. So all your needles, like for your revs, your oil pressure, your oil temperature, your water temperature, and your speed all line up so that is you notice it so much faster when a needle drops off, like your temperature goes fucking sky high or the oil pressure drops off. You notice the needle faster because they're all in different positions.
Honestly, that makes total sense. And do you know what else that also relies on crucially is having fucking gauges for
Yeah,
stuff like temperature, you
yeah.
know? And I mean oil pressure handy, but you know, there's a lot of cars that don't have an oil pressure gauge, but the amount of new cars that don't have a fucking temperature gauge, it's really good to know that information.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That information can save an engine. Like I was once with a friend who had a Opel VXR, and we were going to Glasgow. On the way, his check engine light came on as we were basically getting onto a motorway slip road, and he pulled off at the first roundabout. By the time that had happened, and it would only have been like a couple of miles, maybe 3 miles at absolute most, of the check engine light being on, that was enough time for his block to have been completely fucked from the heat because the check engine light was for high engine temperature because it had, I think it was a leak in the cooling system. It pissed everything out and the engine had just kind of overheated and seized. And the only information he got as a driver was check engine.
Yeah.
Like that's insane to me. That genuinely like really shocked me. I was like, fuck. I've been in this situation. My little Fiesta, that fucking temperature gauge was angry, and I knew something was amiss. Like you could keep that car happy because you had the temperature gauge, and you could like take heat out of the engine bay,
Yeah.
cool the car down.
No,
It's yeah, I do find that absolutely crazy that cars don't have like basic stuff like a temperature gauge on.
yeah. Actually, that's like one of my top 10 modifications is putting gauges in as well for this absolute purpose.
And honestly, it should be quite easy now because you get so much of that information from the car.
Yeah, you can actually buy gauge. There's a company called Jada Tech. Shout out. Not that we're sponsored in any way, shape, or form, but if you would like to, that'd be fine. A company called Jada Tech, and they do multifunction displays that just plug into the OBD port, and they
Yeah,
do
exactly. It's
all.
all available.
Yeah, And it's a really nice solution to a problem that should never have existed in the first place. But it's what happens when accountants build cars instead of engineers, I suppose. But yeah, we've went on quite a considerable tangent here.
We have, yeah. We've got far, far, far away from the subject at hand.
Well, I'm going to pull it back, right? So, given everything we've talked about,
Yes.
more so instead of like on gauges and shit, but like building and buying, do you think building's worth it?
Oh, no, I don't. I really wish I did, but I don't. I think for most people, building is not worth it. Building is not something that you should be doing. I think lightly modifying, okay, but not going into something like really intense. But then that saves the big projects for the people that really are suited for it, that can do it, that are willing to spend years of their life dedicating it to this project that maybe only themselves and a handful of other people give a shit about. Like they're the heroes to me, but I don't think it's worth it for anyone else, really.
Fair enough. So
what about you, Colin?
I think it is, but it's context sensitive. Like, I would never build a Citroen C1, for example.
But what if it was to enter a Citroen C1 Race Cup?
Well, you see, now you're being really difficult and changing the context of the question.
I am, yeah, that was a bit bad faith. It's very bad faith.
Yeah, but well, actually, no, because a factory cup, like, really all you're doing is stripping all the weight out of it, putting a roll cage in, a bucket seat, and a harness, and
a fire extinguisher.
A fire extinguisher, and a bit of wood on a beam brake on the front bumper for timing. So really, yeah, I mean, I would build a Citroen C1, but only for that very, very specific fucking reason that you threw at me there as an absolute you dick.
It's an actual championship. It's cool.
It is.
I think they also accept the 107, so you might actually be able to enter your Nugget.
I would love to enter the Nugget in a factory race series, bud, but the Nugget is unfortunately part of the Copart adventure that ends in me owning a Porsche 911 Turbo. So it's being sacrificed for greater causes, I'm afraid.
No, that is truly a shame. It could have been a race winner. It could have had pedigree.
It could have done.
Do you reckon that would add more value to it if you said, yeah, it's been thrashed about on a racetrack and it won?
One careful lady owner, and then I bought it and raced it for a season. It's had 4 different engines and several different chassis upgrades.
One careful endurance race.
Yeah. So, since you very kindly threw me a fucking curveball, I'm going to throw you another curveball. Is building worth it if you get a garage to do it for you?
See, this is tough, actually, because it's a more accessible way of getting the kind of car you're looking for, but also you really have to trust that garage is going to, one, do it, because I know a lot of people and a lot of places where, a garage has agreed to take on work. They've not really appreciated how much work's there, and it's basically sat with them for a long fucking time. And then it becomes a problem of, like, getting the car back and, like, sorting everything out. So if you've got a motivated garage that have got, like, a good track history of, like, delivering stuff, and you trust their work, and you've got the money and it's what you want, then yeah, I think you could definitely go down that route. That's totally viable. Like, I know my uncle has a Porsche 356. I'm not sure if it's like an A, B, or whatever. Maybe a B, I'm not sure, or C. But he got it restored, and he got it restored professionally at a garage. And that car is immaculate. It's really fucking nice. I mean, when you're in it, it's bouncing up and down on a cart on a cobbled street, like it's an old fucking car. But it's like really, really nice. It looks beautiful. And, all he had to do was buy the fucking thing in the first place, drop it off, and look through the photos of the build process that was documented using, the old, like, disposable cameras. So it's got a lovely stack of, like, literal photographs of the build, which I really enjoy. I like when you get a car, it's got, like, an album that comes with it of how it was getting, like, done up. But yeah, so in that case, yeah, okay, totally. You go for it, but the cost of getting a car repaired and restored and stuff like that, you really need to be sure that you want that car.
Oh, yeah. Because, I mean, as an ex-fucking automotive trade monkey previously, like, even a small garage, you're talking 60 quid an hour. Like, that's a one-man band, which probably isn't going to be doing work like this. So really, you're
Yeah,
talking something that's like more to the 70, 80 quid an hour. And when you're talking about like a restoration, that's a fucking colossal amount of money.
it really is. Like all of the labor in stripping a car down, and like if it needs body work, you know, you might need to get a bodywork specialist in. If they've got it in house, then great. But then there's like respraying, treating, rebuilding. You know, then it goes to fettling. Then it comes to like, you know, does the car need tuned? Have you replaced any of the old stuff with new stuff? Does that need to be like kind of like bedded in? There's a lot of like, that's the thing with resto mods as well, is you've got to take into account that you're putting the stuff that shouldn't be there on the car. And when you start using different components, that's when you get weird, unexpected, like, oh, this doesn't work, this doesn't fit.
Oh yeah, like you're definitely in the realms of having to abide by the project triangle, you know, cost, time, quality, pick two, because you can't have all three.
Yeah, totally. And if you're going to do it yourself and you've got all the time in the world, then great. But
Yeah. So really, I don't think it really matters what you do. I don't think building is ever really worth it. I mean,
not financially, no. I don't think
oh,
building is ever financially worth it. But cars are never financially worth it. We need to keep that in mind.
yeah. I mean, I will put the caveat on there, like when I mentioned like the budget NAT builds on Supras, where people are getting like 300-400 brake from a 220 brake engine for under £1,000. And admittedly, they're using eBay parts, they're using Chinese stuff, they're using second-hand parts, but they're still doing it on a minuscule budget, realistically. Outside of that, financially, it's not worth it.
Yeah. Which is a little bit sad, actually.
It is. Like, I love seeing things that people put their own stamp on.
Mm-hmm. Me too. Like when we go to a car show, I really like when someone's taken a car and made it individual. Like at Gravity, one of my favorite things was that, oh fuck, what was it? Was it a Vauxhall van?
Yes, I know exactly the one you're on about.
Or was it a Peugeot van? It was a wee van that someone had put like, you know, a spicy motor in. I'm really annoyed that I can't remember that now. It was one of my faves. You know, I liked that. Like it was totally unique, a really interesting build. Such a cool car, but like, you know, I just feel so bad, but was it worth it?
You know what? I reckon he thinks it was worth it.
I hope he does. I really hope he does. Like, honestly, maybe I'm so jaded. Maybe that's a problem. Maybe I'm just too jaded about it. But
Because
I don't know. But then again, you buy like a brand new car or like a sports car out of the box, and like you're gonna lose money on that as well. It's not like you're gonna ever make any kind of. You're gonna lose money either way.
yeah, you're not in this to make a profit. Like you're in this for the enjoyment.
Yeah.
When you get to this level, certain.
Maybe if you enjoy working on the car, it's like definitely something that you would get a lot out of.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting point that as well, because now that looking back, like there was times where I was just doing it out of sheer anger, and like I could have set fire at the fucking car mid build and walked away a happy man. But see, looking back on it now, genuinely, I was actually really happy with what I was doing, and I got a lot of enjoyment out of it at the time.
Yeah, as a project to focus on, work on, and stuff like that to fulfill you essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good point. Like, you know, maybe the point of the car build isn't really the car.
maybe it's the person.
Yeah, maybe it's you you enjoying it, enjoying yourself. Interesting.
Fuck, we're getting philosophical here now.
Yes,
So,
a tiny bit.
Is the point of building a car not actually to make the car better, but in a roundabout way to make your fucking self better?
Yeah, I actually am completely on board with that. Yes, I think it is. I think you want to have this kind of connection with the car. A kind of you want to put something into it that's your own, and that's what that is. And like a build is just kind of modifying slightly to a much more extreme, and you could maybe argue intimate kind of level.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
So now we've decided that we don't think builds are worth doing. When are we going to do one?
Ooh. Well.
Because obviously, if they're financially ruinous and a terrible idea, and neither of us seem like that keen on it, we should probably do it at some point.
We should, and I think this is like now we're getting into like a video content as well.
Yeah,
or even
totally.
if we do it outside the chat, outside of the podcast, I'd be totally cool with that as well.
I'm not thinking of doing this like tomorrow, but like, yeah, this could be quite good fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
think
looking here. I found a perfect base car as well.
what hit me.
It's a 2005 Nissan Almira Tino SE.
I thought you said the perfect base.
I'm looking at it here. It has, according to this advert, it has a 1.8 litre engine, but only 75 horsepower, and I'm not sure if that's possible.
No, it'll be like 115 horsepower. What year?
Yeah.
05? No, maybe 130. That's about period correct for that sort of size engine for output level.
The only reason I looked at this is because my mum used to have one, and it was by far and away her least favourite car by a good margin.
Fuck, I remember that.
She fucking hated it, and I'm not surprised. It was like she basically had to buy a kind of MPV thing for kid-based stuff.
Oh, fuck, that's coming to me soon, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It totally is. You're gonna have to get something with multiple seats.
No, I don't, because I'm not willing to sacrifice things for I'm not willing to sacrifice coolness and fun and not being an adult for what the word's escaping me. It's just not fucking coming to my brain at all. I'll circle back. Do continue. Yeah, fuck.
Totally
Yeah, I
fair. Do you know what you could do? You could have Bex drive in a car, and you could just follow on a motorbike. Follow.
This is something that has popped into my head already. It's like,
I feel like that is a solution.
that is a solution, and it is a very nice. I like that. So, it means I get to have fun, and I also get to have a Porsche.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good decision you've come to.
Do you know what? Right, on our chat of recent and the first and now second podcast we've done, this has came up. So I imagine we need to get a Mark 1 RX-8 and build it for a track, and then when it blows up, we keep hold of it and we do an engine swap.
Ooh, that sounds good. Yeah, you could title the video "Fixing Mazda's Mistake."
Yeah,
I'm sure that would go down really well.
I happen to know for a fact that I can buy online a conversion plate that makes the RX-8 gearbox mate up to an M113 V8 out of an S500 Mercedes.
That's an interesting combination.
It is, because the M113 from an S500 Mercedes is essentially the same engine minus a supercharger as in an E55.
What kind of power does it produce on its non-supercharged state?
About 355 brake horsepower. About 300.
Seems more than adequate for an RX-8.
Yeah, but I mean,
how heavy is it compared to? Well, it'll be much heavier than a Wankel.
What, an RX? I don't know, actually. It's one of the engine weights. Not something I've got committed to memory. Which I've got everything else.
That's fair. I don't think you get tested on that very often.
No. I mean, I imagine it'll be lighter than a 2J, because that's that's a boat anchor.
Hold on.
But probably heavier than a 15B RSP. But that I think that has to be our build.
Yeah, I mean, I do love the RX-8, and I think it would be quite fun to have one with a different engine, to be honest.
And a lot of the interior stuff in an RX-8 is actually quite heavy, so adding lightness and simplicity would be relatively simplistic.
Yes.
God damn it, you've just committed us to a financial mistake here. Well, it was a team effort, but yeah.
So, I'm looking at the engines for... Why do people keep giving me the full car weight? That's insane.
Yeah. So there's only one question for me left, and this is more of a social one, which feel free to mull it over while you're perusing engine weights on the internet. And I don't think it's currently, but do you think the built versus bought was a blue collar versus a white collar thing when it started?
Oh, we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? I mean, I think you could certainly make a good argument for that building is more blue collar and buying is the white collar aspect. And I can set out kind of a few reasons maybe why. I mean, I think the first one is probably availability of capital. It's a lot easier to buy a cheaper car and then gradually improve it by doing it yourself to make it what you want, than having, the finances to basically, buy a quicker car, a more expensive car straight up. That's definitely like it was a big part of it. Although I think that has kind of changed a little bit with PCP and financing absolutely everything. But also, I think that's probably like quite a big part of it. I think that's also another maybe reason why, as you get maybe a little older, you tend to buy rather than build, just because you have that financial capital kind of more easily to be able to do that.
That's a fair point. Yeah. Because I am building a lot less than I used to. I've not built anything for several years now, which is a fucking long time.
Yeah, totally. Do you find it's just because like it's not really a priority at the moment, and there's much more important things?
Yeah, man. Like, I started, like, life got a bit more serious.
Yeah.
Like, I bought a house, and then I started taking my job seriously instead of just rocking up and taking the piss all the time. And then I got into a relationship, and now there's a baby on the horizon. So yeah, life got serious, and the resources had to be spent in other places,
Yeah, it makes total sense.
which is actually quite sad.
I know. It feels a little bit bad, but like it makes sense to do that.
Fuck you, adulting.
I know, I totally agree. So yeah, no, I think that maybe there is a little bit of, those people that can't afford what they want straight out of the gate are more likely to try and build it themselves, which is totally like, totally exactly what you'd expect, kind of. It's great. I don't know what I'm saying with that. I'm a little bit lost now.
No, I get that, but I will say there is a part of me that wants to build as well.
Yeah, I know, I totally know. You just
Like,
want to build in a nice, easy way rather than fucking like going to a freezing fucking cold unit and like doing some stuff, not having the right part, having to leave it.
because in fact, this actually the Copart adventure is a bit of an example here, right? Because I want a 911 turbo, but the whole reason I want a 911 turbo is because it has the Mesger engine, like the GT2 RS does, or the GT2 does, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's four-wheel drive. And if it's four-wheel drive, I can take the front fucking drive off it and make it rear-wheel drive, and that gives me a GT2 RS for the price of a 911 turbo and a little bit of fucking elbow grease.
Fair enough. So you are going to do some building.
Yeah, I'm never going to stop building. You know, that's me. That's in my DNA, man.
Yeah, that's actually nice. I like that. I
Yeah.
hope at one point I do build something as well, or even maybe take something apart's more my vibe. I might put it back together again, or I might not.
Hey, as long as you do something, that's the main.
Yeah, I found out from my mum that her brother, my uncle, was a total bastard for doing that. He would just take stuff apart and then just leave a disassembled car in the garage for years and buy another one. Just
That's
let the process continue again.
incredible. I love it. So, I think we're going to be like an hour and a half, maybe an hour and three quarters on this episode, dude. So, what do you think of the build versus bought argument? Just a closing thought, and then we'll.
Okay, my closing thought, and I think this is kind of the almost full circle we've come on this episode. Building is not the sensible thing to do, but it's probably what we all want to do, and you should do it if you want to do it, because life's quite short and cars are a total money pit anyways, so you may as well fucking get something out of it. Like learn a skill, have some like fun, don't do it to your daily, get something else that you can have off the road for extended periods of time. And if
Yeah,
it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You still learn something. I think that's where I'm going on this. I want it to be
yeah.
a positive kind of thing.
You know, I have to agree. The, the only bit I don't wholeheartedly agree with is the you don't do it for cost. Because like my example with the 911, a GT2 and a turbo are both very, very different price points. And it doesn't matter what generation of 911 you're talking about, they're fucking different. So if you have the knowledge and the notion, you can build a GT2, admittedly not with a GT2 VIN number or badge, but you can build that motherfucker for half the cost of it. But that's a very specific example.
I mean, to be fair, though, I do get your point. There are actually like quite a lot of models that are cheap that with like little bit of kind of, the right parts here and there, a little bit of encouragement and some time are comparable to like the the kind of desirable top spec, the one that commands the premium. There are like a few models out there like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, totally on board. But like,
But on the whole, I totally agree with that. And I don't think there's anything I can add to it apart from that. It is totally something you do because your heart says to do it. It's not a head decision, this.
yeah,
This
it's
is
absolutely not. You could come up with 100 reasons to not do it, and they would all be really good, and they'd all probably be better than the reason you have to do it. But you know, the reason you have to do it might be it makes you happy.
fucking hell. Well, that about wraps it up, folks. Thanks for listening. This has been Auto Arcadia. I've been your host, Colin Wood,
I've been Thomas Hope.
and again, thank you for listening. If you've liked what you've heard, leave us a like, a share, and a subscribe. And as always, leave a review. It's nice to hear what people are thinking. Remember, 5 out of 5 or fucking nothing, please.
Bye.
Bye.